What are you doing? Let go. Let go, sir. Shit. Be a good minion. Be a good minion. You ever wake up and feel like your fucking life is a mess? I'm almost 40. I'm almost 40 and I feel like I failed in so many different ways. You know, do I just have an unrealistic expectation about what the timeline should be? Is there like all these milestones and who sets these expectations? Are these my expectations or are these the rest of society's expectations that tell me that I'm supposed to have a lucrative career, that I'm supposed to have a fancy degree, and that I'm not supposed to be living in a 2-bedroom apartment. I'm supposed to have real life children and not ferrets. I'm supposed to have gold and riches. I'm supposed to be famous, and I don't have any of those things. So maybe I set myself up for failure.
Partner, why do I feel like a failure? I mean, it's important to remember that feeling like a failure and actually being a failure are two different things. And you don't have to be clinically depressed in order to have, feelings of self-doubt or regret or a sense that you've wasted your potential from time to time. So, is there something that I'm doing wrong? Well, I asked my wife to help me think about it, and we came up with 3 possibilities for why I might be feeling like a failure. The first is that I have unrealistic expectations. Am I the only one that harbors this illogical belief that I have completely limitless potential and that I am a master of my destiny? Or is that an American ideal? The belief that we are masters of the universe. Partner, I remember when I was young, my dad told me, son, you can be anything you want. And I said, Dad, I want to be a centaur. And I could tell that made him really proud. But he said, well, I meant within reason.
Which is funny because at various other times when I told him I wanted to be an astronaut or a rock star or the president of the United States, he didn't blink an eye. He didn't say, now, come on, son, be reasonable.
And when you think about it, what's the difference between being president and being a centaur? Well, one is not possible, and the other is possible. But are we kind of deluding ourselves by focusing on what is possible rather than what is realistic? What is probable? Of all the children that wanted to be astronauts, rock stars, and presidents, very, very, very few of them actually became those things. Why? Because of the environment, because of hidden variables, because of constraints. About a month ago, I planted green onions out in my balcony planter. And a few days later, up popped a healthy crop of jalapeno peppers. Was it the seed manufacturer's fault for mislabeling the seeds? No, partner. Which makes me feel like a total failure because how hard is it? Right? There's 4 variables that I can tell. There's soil, there's the seed, there's sun, and there's water. And somehow I messed that up. So I think a lot of the times I think all of us to some degree, oversimplify our environment and we forget about the hidden variables that really change things, that place constraints on growth. So what actually happened is when I prepared the planter, I mixed in some compost into the soil. And little did I know that compost, there were pepper seeds laying in wait. And that is what the environment selected for growth. So have you ever heard the phrase, man proposes, God, or the universe, disposes? Having your expectations broken over and over again releases stress hormones into your brain, which kind of casts a shadow over all aspects of your life. So maybe I need to get better at managing my expectations of success. And that's not a defeatist mindset. That just means identifying risk and making better predictions about the future. And especially if you're trying to do something really challenging where there's a lot of competition, like start a new business or write a best-selling novel or blow up on Twitch, right? Give yourself enough time to actually be successful. And maybe you shouldn't expect that you will actually achieve all the recognition that you think that you deserve. So maybe it's better to ask yourself, is this activity worth doing for its own sake? Now, a second thing that I think that I'm doing is making unfair comparisons. Sometimes other people's successes remind me of my own failure or perceived failure. So last week I finished reading this book and I loved it. And I identified with the author. Something about his style and subject matter that I really found compelling. It was the book that I would have written had I decided to pursue writing as a career. And in some ways, because I feel like there was no real physical barriers, right, to my writing a type of book like this, for some reason I feel like it's okay to compare myself to him. And that maybe it's even probable that I would have won a Nobel Prize like he did. But that's not fair, is it, partner? And I find myself doing this
all the time. When I'm listening to podcasts about the brain, or when I'm watching YouTube channels, or even when I'm scrolling Instagram and I'm seeing all of your lovely pictures of, fancy vacations or new houses.
Now, in all of these situations, I'm comparing myself to individuals who I consider my peers. Right? In a number of ways, on the surface, we seem very similar. So maybe we're the same age, or maybe we went to the same school, or maybe we have similar aptitudes, or IQs as best I can judge. Or maybe we have similar access to resources, right? Our socioeconomic status. And when I simplify the world like this, I think it confuses me into believing I am making an apples-to-apples comparison. When really, partner, how can you compare any two people's lives? This is just preposterous, isn't it? Look at the jalapenos again, right? You can see that even though all of these seeds are genetic siblings, so they should have fairly equivalent initial potential, right? Latent potential. Not all of them grow to the same height. Variations that are hidden below the surface, right? The differing levels of moisture or the nutrients in the soil will favor some seeds more. And that allows them to start taking more and more from a shared resource pool, and even changing the environment and making it less conducive for the growth of other individuals.
Do you ever feel like we're all planted too close together, and wherever you go, you look up and you see these individuals that have just grown to astronomical heights, and you feel like you're living in their shadow?
It's kind of hard to be a big fish in a small pond nowadays, because our local environment is now our global environment, because we're all so connected, right, through the interwebs and social media. And is it a problem now that we can't help but notice and focus on the black swans of society, right? The Elon Musks and the LeBron Jameses and the PewDiePies of the world. A lot of successful individuals came from humble beginnings. Does that give us a false sense of hope that we too could have or should have achieved a similar level of success? Or does comparing ourselves to them diminish our growth? All of these individuals, they tell us what is possible, but not what is probable. From now on, when I catch myself comparing. I'm going to try to do my best to shift my reference point, aka cognitive reframing, to a place in my past where I was less well off than I am today. Say when I was a stupid teenager, right? To give myself a sense of growth. And in this way, when we focus on our personal growth, we can stay optimistic about our future. Now, the last thing that I think that I'm doing is I'm defaulting to a narrow definition of success. There is a limitation built into our visual, perceptual, attentional system where we can really only focus at high resolution on one small thing at a time. And I notice that I'm doing this when I'm comparing myself to others. I'll take one aspect of life. Maybe it's my career, or my relationship, or my education, or my StarCraft ladder ranking. And when I focus on that one thing, it sort of excludes all of the other ways that I could consider myself a success. Now, maybe this is a good thing, right? Maybe this is like a survival instinct. Focusing on the ways in which we don't measure up helps us to fix those problems in our life. But I think it's equally problematic if we're constantly narrowly focused. We forget that we're not a single plant in a single planter. We are a vast garden, right? Acres and acres of beautiful flowers and succulent vegetables. Our life it's a bunch of seeds that we have scattered. Many things that never grew. Many things that have grown to an average height, and a few things that have grown exceptionally tall. And it's really impossible to sort of boil all of that complexity down into a single number. Partner, have you seen the Black Mirror episode called Nosedive? Which imagines a future society where each person is connected to this vast social network, and every public moment of their lives, every interaction with another human is rated. And they're given a single numerical score that is public knowledge. A social rank, which grants them certain benefits. It dictates where they can live, who they can associate with. And if your number is too low, people don't respect you, and they just ignore you. Now, this seems kind of scary and dystopian until you realize that, we've been doing that all along. It's the number that's attached to our bank account, isn't it, partner? Yeah, money, the universal currency. Right? It's a simple metric by which we can judge an individual's fitness level or value to society. Right? It grants you access to security, it grants you access to allies, to mating opportunities, to, the best medicine, the best food. It makes sense.
But maybe, just maybe, we have evolved society past where we were hundreds of thousands of years ago, and we should start thinking about it in more complex terms than a single competition for access to food and mating rights.
And so, if you're like me and for whatever reason, money just doesn't motivate you above having a roof over your head and food on the table, then you might feel a bit abandoned or ignored by society. And if so, then maybe we should think about broadening our personal definition of success. I wonder if I default to this false belief that success is about money because money buys stuff and stuff accumulates. Right? And maybe that acts as a visual reminder of the progress that I'm making. Plus I can take pictures of my stuff and post it on social media and make it public, right? Ask everybody out there to update my social ranking score to reflect this new level of success that I've achieved. But it's funny because when I asked my Facebook friends what they thought success meant, not a single person said money. right? So we know better. We know that if we use money and stuff as a metric for success, we're always going to be living in the shadow of someone else that has just a little bit more money and stuff than we do. So maybe we should come up with a new creative way to redefine success that is more personally meaningful and maybe more sustainable. Success is having a human brain. Dude, if you didn't have a human brain, you couldn't do anything about your misery or your suffering. You couldn't think yourself out of it. Success is having 86 billion neurons. Processing power, man. Success is learning how to use those things better. Success is outthinking yourself when you think yourself into a rut. There are a million different ways that we can define success such that we don't feel like a failure, such that give us the optimism and strength to keep going and never giving up. Success is not being defeated when you plant something that doesn't grow, but turning around and putting 2 more seeds into the ground, knowing that eventually with enough time something totally unexpected and truly miraculous will grow. Success is not about having a beautiful body. It's not having a beautiful bank account to buy beautiful things. It's about growing a beautiful mind. And that is something that anyone can achieve. And that no amount of money can buy. Now you tell me, partner, how do you define success? I'll see you next time, man. On the joy of thinking. Shoot. We're gonna succeed up in here. We can do anything. We can be anything. We can do anything.
Don't let your dreams be dreams. Just do it. Nothing is impossible. Except being a centaur. And there's a lot of stuff that you probably won't be either, but, you know, within reason, partner. You gotta obey the laws of physics, you know?